at me and tell me what you see. I look at you and tell you what I feel. Look at me and tell me what you see. I look at you and tell you what I feel.
Welcome back to The Ring 2. The Ring was a pretty successful film, and it practically ignited the remake of the Japanese horror craze. But with success, there comes pressure for a sequel, even when it's not necessary at all. However, they did try to make the sequel a success, even going as far as getting the director of the original film to direct The Ring 2. So, why is this film so terrible? Let's find out, shall we? The film begins with images of water, because water is a major theme for the film, and that's exactly how you get that across to the audience, isn't it? You may not know this, but oranges are a major theme to this show, actually. Normally you wouldn't notice, but I just thought I'd mention that. We meet two high school students on what I guess you'd call a date in a park. She says he's never noticed her till now, but he convinces her that he likes her now. Why she accepts it so easily, I don't know. He's not exactly a great liar. They go to the guy's home and he's noticeably anxious over the time for some reason. And then the other shoe falls from the sky, as he tells her that he's got something to show her. An incredibly scary movie, and yeah, you can see where this is going, and it's not to set a romantic mood. And he's pretty damn insistent that she watches it, as he leaves her with the tape, kissing her to persuade her further. While in the kitchen, he's desperately pacing, watching the clock. He shouts for her to play it, and that's when he hears the tape playing. He gets a phone call from someone congratulating him on surviving and managing to get someone to watch his tape.
What went down, man? You get someone to watch it?
Yeah, man. Some stupid chick from my school.
To fill you in on what's going on, there's a short film called Rings that bridges the gap between the first film and this one. It tells the story of an underground group who share the tape and pass it on to others while recording their experiences. I didn't review it, mainly because it's just stuff we've seen before, and the Rings Club is never actually mentioned or seen again after the film's opening, and bears no relevance to the plot in any way. It serves to set up the guy as a self-serving, manipulating arsehole, but you could probably tell that already. And while the guy talks, he sees water come from under the door and knows that something's wrong. When he goes to investigate, it's revealed that the girl played the tape, but covered her eyes, so she didn't actually watch it. So now the guy's gonna die. And yeah, I couldn't give a flying fuck, frankly. And we see as the guy approaches the TV, he gets drawn in, as Samara climbs out of the well and kills the guy. Didn't that look just absolutely crap? That death scene pales in comparison to the death scenes in the first film. And why the hell was the image of the well different to the image in the first film? That's just a bizarre and pointless change that didn't need to happen. Just reuse the footage, for Christ's sake. And lastly, the deaths in the first film were shocking because we didn't know what to expect, and we actually cared about the people dying. They were at least likeable. Who cares about that guy, when all we've seen him do is manipulate and lie to save his own skin? So, all in all, a terrible opening that doesn't bode well for the rest of the film. The film picks back up after that nonsense with the main plot, which will get just as nonsensical. Rachel and Aidan have moved out of the city into a small town to get away from everything to do with the tape. They sit down for dinner with Rachel looking at Aidan's photographs because he's taken up photography like his father, even though he didn't really know him at all, but whatever. And Rachel complains that he's always calling her by her name and not something like Mom, which will be an important, albeit stupid plot point later. Later, Rachel's at her new newspaper job, speaking with her boss, who's complaining that she's changed his lead article, and she changed it because it was wrong. So he's an idiot, basically. And just before leaving the office, she hears the news of the kid at the start who died, with Rachel recognising elements of the story, like the kid's distorted face and being found in front of the TV. So she goes to investigate, finding the place taped off by police. But that obviously doesn't stop her, and she gets into the ambulance to inspect the body. And upon opening the body bag, she does indeed find the kid was another victim of the tape, despairing because the tape and Samara has reached her again, quite literally, as Samara herself pops up out of the body bag to grab Rachel, saying that she's found her. So I assume that Samara can manifest herself so easily now is because Rachel let her out of the well. However, the main problem with that is it means that the Ring sequel isn't like the Ring at all. And a perfect example of that is that the tape never gets played again. And after a short scene coming up, we never even see the tape again. So I ask you, what the hell is the point of that? Rachel's gone back to the house when it's quiet to search for the tape. Like the ambulance incident, doing something illegal and breaking into someone's home and a crime scene. But she does find the tape. And driving to the middle of nowhere, she burns the tape. Did that tape just scream? Apparently so, and it's still screaming. And there goes the cursed tape from a Ring movie, in a completely bland and uninteresting fashion. Back with Aiden in bed, a sound wakes him up and he goes to see what it was, going to the TV, which is on static. He tries turning it off, but naturally nothing happens. And getting closer, the TV turns to the crappy well, and water starts flooding the room with Samara approaching the screen. And when she gets to it, she grabs Aiden trying to pull him in. But turns out it was just a nightmare. The last time the first movie did that, I gave it a pass because it was well done. Here it's just cheap and nasty, plain and simple. And the first of many reasons why this film is more of a generic ghost story movie rather than The Ring. Later that day, Aiden and Rachel have gone to a local fair. Rachel looks around while Aiden takes photographs, and it's all very dull because literally nothing happens. This is not atmosphere building, it's just filler. Rachel finds a load of videotapes looking weary at an unmarked case, and then her boss shows up to do some flirting and snooping on Rachel, asking why she's moved to the town. And it's not casual chit-chat, he constantly acts rather accusingly towards Rachel, and it's just odd and frankly very rude. She loses sight of Aiden as he goes into the public bathroom with the toilets backing up, so it's just your average public convenience really. Aiden tries washing his hands, but the taps don't work either, and then a fly comes out of one of them. Again, I'm not seeing anything unusual here. But eventually, Aiden sees in the mirror that Samara has appeared behind him, as she floats toward him. Okay, firstly, that's not Deusdaecon Chaser's Samara, and it's really noticeable. But also, the floating across the floor thing looked really silly. What happened to the way she moved before? That was far more creepy and unnatural to me, and not an effect you can achieve just by sticking the actress on a skateboard. Rachel finds Aiden in the bathroom constantly taking pictures, and he's also freezing cold. She doesn't really think much of it, although she should, and as they drive back home, Rachel finally asks about his nightmare, and if Samara was there. His silence pretty much says it all. However, Rachel is forced to slam on the brakes as a deer walks into the road, all the while Aiden is shouting not to stop the car. But then the horribly CGI deer attacks the car, smashing the windows. It's a clear attempt to one-up the horse going crazy in the last film that doesn't really work because the horse was bloody real. I get that it's probably cheaper to make the deer CGI, but it just feels like a half-hearted attempt. Rachel manages to drive off, but not before another deer runs into the front of the car, getting wiped out. She stops again as a load more CGI crap surround the car, seemingly calmed down, and Rachel drives off tentatively. They get home with them noticing that the water in Aiden's fish tank is drained, and Rachel calls a doctor while Aiden sleeps. But as he does, the lights in his room start going crazy. Yeah, this is full-on poltergeist nonsense that feels nothing like the psychological horror of The Ring anymore, especially when all the appliances in the kitchen start going crazy too. And that dead fish is clearly the scariest part of all. Rachel runs upstairs to Aiden, finding the window open, but also finding Samara there scratching at the wall, which is quite a creepy visual. And when Rachel tries to get Aiden, he's actually standing in Samara's place. And as he turns around, the wall starts to burn, forming the image of the tree from the first movie, with Aiden saying that he made it because he saw the image in his head. So Rachel decides to take Aiden to a hospital. No. A friend's house. No. A church even. No, it's obviously take your sick and haunted child to work day, as she takes him into her office. I really don't know why that was her first choice. Aiden tells Rachel that she can't hear people when they sleep, which will be another plot point later. And of course, this snooping arse comes in to stick his nose in, but Rachel manages to get him to take her and Aiden to his place. They run a bath for Aiden, but he's afraid to get into the water, and that's because Samara is afraid of water. Which is news to me because she sure as hell enjoys using water a lot. She doesn't really seem like a person afraid of the stuff. It's almost like they made that up for this fucking movie or something. Could you imagine such a thing? Rachel goes back home to get some things and she finds Aiden's camera, and looking through the photos she finds the ones from the fair bathroom, discovering Samara is in them, which finally cements the idea in Rachel's head that what's going on is her doing. And back with Aiden, Rachel's boss is looking after him and doing what he does best, snooping on the phone with the police about Rachel. However, his conversation is cut short when the bathroom door closes and is locked, with Aiden inside, and water starts running from under the door. Rachel returns asking Aiden to open the door, with it starting to leak water, and as it opens, Rachel sees all the water in the tub is flying out, and she can see Samara is holding Aiden, and when she tries to talk to him, all the water falls, drenching the place. It's probably a bad sign that I care more about the water damage that's going to ruin that house's market value than any of these characters, isn't it? Rachel tries to get Aiden out the tub, but Samara pops up instead in the exact way someone who's afraid of water wouldn't. Rachel starts drowning Samara, but her boss comes in to get the wrong idea, as he sees Rachel drowning Aiden and suspects child abuse, as Aiden keeps saying why is she doing that to him, with the guy thinking he's talking about Rachel. We then move to a hospital where Aiden's been taken, and Rachel is in the waiting room where literally fuck all happens for like a whole goddamn minute. Seriously, all that happens is Rachel waits while the nurses and her boss give her dirty looks. Rachel gets told about Aiden's condition, with them baffled by it all, but mostly thinking that Rachel's hurt him on purpose. And while getting coffee, Rachel's boss continues his line of questioning, asking her what the whole story is. This movie's turning into a daytime special. I guess I should be glad for all the poltergeist shit. Breaks up the monotony of this crap. Rachel tries showing the guy the pictures Aiden took of Samara, and she tells him her whole story, which he obviously doesn't believe, with Rachel saying Samara wants to be Aiden, and she tells him to take his picture again for proof, which won't sound like crazy talk to the guy at all. Rachel's with Aiden talking to him as he grabs her arm, and she gets a vision very similar to the way the tape looked, at least the film would like you to think that. But it's not symbolic and creepy looking enough to compare to the tape. And after the vision, a woman from social services appears to ask some questions of Rachel, because she's there to see if what's happening is indeed child abuse. And when Rachel doesn't cooperate, she tells Rachel that she's not allowed to be alone with him, and she tells Samara that she won't be staying before leaving the room. The doctor shows Rachel into an interview room, locking the door, but Rachel manages to slip out the window. The stuff with the social services, although makes sense in the context of what's happening to Aiden, in the whole scheme of things and the plot of the film, it doesn't have much of an impact though. It just happens in the middle of the movie, and then the film moves on. It's becoming painfully obvious that the filmmakers had a simple plot outline that they had no idea how to extend into a cohesive narrative. So continuing with this disjointed mess, Rachel has decided to look further into Samara's history, going to the adoption office to see if they can tell her anything. But obviously they can't just divulge that information. So Rachel takes it upon herself to go all the way back to Moesco Island and to the Morgan Ranch to investigate. This is literally just retreading the steps the last film took, with little reason. Fortunately, the house is being sold and it's open to the public, as she's greeted by the realtor. The house is empty now, and Rachel asks about the furniture, which the guy tells her that all the stuff is in the basement, and is very unwilling to admit the previous owners died. Rachel goes into the basement looking for some kind of clue. She finds an old suitcase that has Samara's stuff from the orphanage, and there's also a book which has a message saying "For Samara," which would make me think that it's a book of photos or something nice for a child to read, but no, it contains news clippings of how her mother tried to drown her and strange images of suicide and anatomy. Wait, hang on. Why are there rings drawn all over the pages of that book? If the book was for Samara, then surely it was made before she was murdered, which is where the image of the ring, the well being closed up, came from. So, unless Samara's mother can see into the future, then it genuinely makes no sense for those rings to be there. But moving on, back at the hospital, Aiden's TV flickers showing the old image of the well, cause who would care about consistency at this point? And the social services doctor comes in to talk to Aiden. Aiden asks for his mommy, indicating he's now fully possessed by Samara. See, I told you it was a stupid plot point. Aiden, or Samara, keeps asking to go home, saying that Rachel loves him, her, because she found her in the well. And Aiden asks again to go home, which is when Samara gets all evil bitch kill crazy again when the doctor says no. The movie then becomes The Omen, with Aiden, who actually looks kinda like Damien, controls the doctor's actions and gets her to inject a syringe full of air into herself. Apparently Samara has that kind of knowledge for more creative deaths. And then she walks out of the hospital unquestioned, because that's what would happen naturally. Rachel has gone to the orphanage Samara was at, asking to speak to someone who would have worked there at the time. And fortunately for Rachel, there is one, as she sees the Mother Superior. And after seeing the book, she remembers the entire incident with crystal clarity. At least we assume so. She could be making the entire story up for all we know. Especially when she says that Samara's mother told her that Samara was immaculately conceived by Cthulhu. That's not a joke, by the way. Samara's backstory, which is following Sadako's backstory in Ringu, is that her father was a demon of the ocean. Seriously, I couldn't make this up. And yeah, this is the sort of shit I try to avoid by not reviewing the Japanese series. And because the orphanage seems to be not as strict as the adoption office, they tell where Rachel needs to go to speak to Samara's mother.
Every few years, one of you comes to see Evelyn. She's like a freaking patron saint or something. Got a problem with your kid, don't you?
Wait, every few years? This film is supposed to take place a few months after the first film, and I thought Samara got her possessing abilities after Rachel let her out of the well. Now the film's saying she's done this many times before? Then why the fuck does she need to make the tape then? If she can just roam freely about, like we've seen her do, then she wouldn't need the tape to manifest and kill people. She could have done that regardless. Nice way to ruin the first movie, Ring 2. Rachel talks to Samara's mother, and she's pretty much cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs at this point, babbling and not being very helpful. The only thing she says to Rachel that will be helpful is to listen to her son and do what he says, which I'm fairly certain she would have done anyway, so great information there. Aiden has made it home, and Rachel's boss, because like I said, he can't keep his nose out, lets himself in. He's still asking Aiden about the supposed abuse from Rachel. Her boss then tries to take Aiden's picture, which he's very much against, because that would show Samara. The guy promises not to take his picture, but sets up the camera to take a picture remotely, and that's all she wrote for him. That's literally it. Sorry to spoil it for you, but he's dead. And anything that he was involved in with the plot never gets resolved. There's no love interest, which was teased slightly, there's no convincing him of Samara, and there's no social service stuff. He just dies off screen, and all of his lines were a waste of time. Rachel comes home with Aiden greeting her happily, making me see why he didn't smile in the last film, because it's just creepy. And yeah, Aiden calls Rachel mommy, and she instantly knows it's Samara. So much for subterfuge. And Aiden tells Rachel that her boss went away. But he's actually still in his car, and Rachel opens the door to find... Ah, how shocking and unforeseen. I cared so much about him. It's such a shame he's dead, even though he was basically Noah from the last film without any depth or complexity. Rachel goes back inside, distressed, as she hides in her bedroom. I'm not sure why. Samara did the film a favour by killing that guy, frankly. Rachel ends up falling asleep, which is when the real Aiden talks to her, because he and Rachel have a psychic link for no discernible reason. And yeah, like Evelyn said, Aiden tells Rachel what to do. Drown him, and Samara will leave. Rachel joins Aiden watching TV, and because Samara never sleeps, neither does he. So Rachel is forced to drug him with sleeping pills. And once he's unconscious, Rachel runs a bath and puts Aiden in. Samara tries to fake it, making it seem like Aiden is back to normal, but she dunks him in anyway. The whole scene is pretty creepy, considering we don't know this is going to work, and Samara is known to create hallucinations, so it could all be an elaborate trick. But no, the film is nowhere near that clever, as the whole procedure works with an awful CGI evade chase, seemingly bidding farewell to Rachel before disappearing.
Baby, breathe. Please, I know it's you, honey. Aiden! Aiden, please.
Did you see that? If a child ever drowns, don't do anything. Just shake them and shout their name constantly. That's the exact way to help a child who's drowned. However, Samara's not finished yet, as the TV turns on with the well on screen. And it's the different well again. Make up your fucking mind, movie, bloody hell. Samara starts walking to the screen and Rachel approaches her, seemingly knowing what the hell to do, as she lets herself get grabbed and dragged into Samara's world, being dumped into the well. And even though it was established that Samara was unable to climb out, tearing her fingernails off in the process, Rachel starts climbing out of the well. Isn't this Samara's world? Why can't she just control the surroundings at will? But no, instead she just starts creepily climbing after Rachel. Rachel dislodges some stones, causing water to pour out, making Samara fall, and getting out, Rachel pushes the stone back in place, but not before giving a quip.
Not your fucking mommy.
Which is incredibly out of place aggression considering she's been relatively compassionate to Samara's condition. And now to get out of Samara's world, Rachel needs to jump from the cliff, the way Anna Morgan did. Not sure how she knows that would work, but it does. And sadly, she doesn't get catapulted out of the TV screen at terminal velocity like I hoped. She just appears back home with Aiden. And that's pretty much the end of the movie right there. So yeah, forget about the 2 dead bodies caused by Aiden or the social services getting involved. Like I said, none of that gets any kind of resolution whatsoever. Even though the ending to the film isn't particularly happy considering the possibility of prosecution Rachel will face. But let's just be glad The Ring 2's over. First of all, this film is definitely an hour too long. There's so much goddamn filler of people doing literally nothing, the film is completely boring as a result. But also, there's nothing here that we desperately needed to know anyway. The audience doesn't need to know anything more about Samara than we were told in the last film, because when you explain something so in-depth, it loses its power to grab people's imaginations. But even after all that, this film isn't The Ring anyway. You could switch the names, remove the opening bit with the tape, and make a generic ghost movie from what's left. And that really is the best description for this film. Generic, plain and simple. Oh, boring as well, but mostly generic. So there you go. I'm pretty sure I made it perfectly clear that The Ring doesn't need a sequel. Mainly because it renders the name The Ring, as in a constantly repeating circle, completely pointless. But anyway, next time we'll be starting a new series that I've been looking forward to for quite some time. So until then, see you next time.